A struggling single Latino dad thought life had defeated him until the CEO's daughter offered him $50,000 and something even more priceless: love and family. The rain poured heavily on the streets of Houston that Friday evening, soaking through the thin jacket of Miguel Alvarez as he pushed a stroller across the cracked pavement. The wheels squeaked with each step, and his daughter, Sophia, only 5 years old, clutched her worn-out teddy bear, blinking drowsily under the plastic cover that shielded her from the storm. Miguel's shoes were soaked, his jeans dark from the water, but he kept moving. He had just left his second job for the day, washing dishes at a small diner that barely paid minimum wage. His real job, if you could call it that, was working construction. But the hours had been cut when the company lost a major contract. Bills were piling up, and every day felt like an uphill battle. "Daddy, are we going home now?" Sophia asked in her soft, sleepy voice. Miguel forced a smile, even though his chest tightened. "Yes, mija. We're going home now. Just a few more steps, okay?" Home was a small, rundown apartment in a neighborhood where police sirens were as common as the sound of barking dogs. The heater had broken weeks ago, but Miguel didn't have the money to fix it. He wrapped Sophia in extra blankets every night, whispering prayers that things would change. As they entered the apartment, Miguel set Sophia on the couch and gave her the last slice of bread with peanut butter. He hadn't eaten since breakfast, but watching her tiny hands hold the bread and her big brown eyes brighten with gratitude was enough to fill his stomach with something more than food: love. "Gracias. Daddy," she whispered, smiling before taking a bite. He kissed her forehead. "Anything for you, princesa." When she fell asleep, Miguel sat at the small kitchen table littered with unpaid bills, rent overdue, utility cutoff notices, medical debt from when Sophia had been sick last winter. He held his head in his hands. His dreams of a better life seemed so far away. It wasn't always like this. Before Sophia was born, Miguel had been full of ambition. He had studied engineering for 2 years before dropping out to care for his pregnant girlfriend. She left months after giving birth, unable to handle the stress, and Miguel had been raising Sophia alone ever since. He had no time for dating, no family nearby, and no one to lean on. Just him and his daughter against the world. But tonight felt heavier than usual. Rent was due in 3 days, and he was short by almost $600. He had applied for every job he could find, but no one was calling back. The fear of losing the roof over their heads clawed at his chest. Miguel whispered a prayer. "God, if you're listening, I don't ask for much. Just give me one chance. One way to give Sophia the life she deserves, please." Little did he know, the answer to that desperate prayer would arrive sooner than he ever imagined, in the most unexpected form. The next morning, Miguel woke before dawn. He packed Sophia's small backpack with crayons and an old coloring book, preparing to drop her off at a neighbor's apartment before heading to a temporary landscaping job. His muscles ached, his eyes burned from lack of sleep, but he pressed on. He always pressed on. At the construction site, Miguel worked tirelessly under the hot Texas sun, shoveling dirt and moving heavy bricks. He didn't complain even when his hands blistered, because every dollar mattered. By the time the shift ended, his shirt was soaked in sweat, his arms trembling with exhaustion. As he walked out, he noticed a black luxury car parked near the site. It was sleek, shiny, and so out of place in that dusty lot that Miguel couldn't help but glance at it. The tinted window rolled down, revealing a young woman with long dark hair wearing an elegant business suit. She had sharp, confident eyes, the kind that belonged to someone who had never worried about rent a day in her life. Her gaze lingered on Miguel for a moment before she spoke. "Excuse me, are you Miguel Alvarez?" Miguel froze, confused. Yes? Do I know you?" The woman smiled faintly. "Not yet. My name is Isabella Romero. My father is Carlos Romero, the CEO of Romero Enterprises." Miguel's heart skipped. Romero Enterprises was one of the wealthiest corporations in the city, dominating real estate and tech investments. Why would someone like her know his name? I don't understand," Miguel said cautiously. "I've been looking for you," Isabella replied, her voice calm but deliberate. "I have a proposition, one that could change your life and your daughter's." Miguel narrowed his eyes, suspicion rising. "What kind of proposition?" Isabella stepped out of the car. She was striking in appearance, tall, poised, carrying herself with the kind of confidence money and power usually granted. Yet there was a softness in her tone as she continued. I know you're struggling. I know about your daughter. And I know you're a good man doing everything you can to protect her. That's why I'm here. Because I need your help. Miguel felt his guard go up. How do you know all this about me? My father has connections, Isabella said bluntly. We do our research. But don't be alarmed, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to make you an offer. She paused, then looked him directly in the eye. I'll give you $50,000 cash. All I ask in return is that you marry me. Just for one day. The words hit Miguel like a truck. He blinked, thinking he must have misheard. Excuse me? You want me to marry you? Yes, just for one day, Isabella repeated. It's complicated, but my father has arranged a business deal that requires me to appear married. I don't trust anyone in my circle to play that role. But you're different. You're a man with no ties to my world, no agenda. That's exactly what I need. Miguel shook his head, stunned. This has to be some kind of joke. I assure you it isn't. Isabella's tone was serious. $50,000. Enough to pay off your debts, secure a better apartment for your daughter, maybe even start fresh, all for one day of your time. Miguel's mind spun. $50,000 was more money than he had ever dreamed of holding. It could change everything. Sofia could have a safe home, better food, better clothes, maybe even a chance at private school someday. But marry a stranger, a wealthy CEO's daughter no less? The idea sounded insane. I don't know what to say, Miguel admitted, his voice trembling. Say you'll think about it, Isabella replied gently. That's all I ask for now. She handed him a business card with her number and slid back into the car. Before leaving, she rolled down the window one last time. You have 3 days to decide. Mr. Alvarez. After that, the offer disappears. The car drove away, leaving Miguel standing in the dusty lot, clutching the card in disbelief. He looked up at the sky, whispering to himself, Dios mío, what just happened? What he didn't know was that this unexpected offer would test his heart, his values, and his love for his daughter in ways he could never have imagined. Miguel could barely sleep that night. The business card Isabella had handed him sat on the table like a glowing piece of temptation, mocking him with every glance. Her words replayed in his mind. $50,000. All I ask in return is that you marry me. Just for one day. He lay on the couch, staring at the cracked ceiling. The thought of such money made his chest tighten. $50,000 meant more than survival. It meant freedom. He could pay off every debt, move out of their dangerous neighborhood, buy Sofia clothes that weren't secondhand, and finally stop worrying about every grocery receipt. But at what cost? The word marriage wasn't one he took lightly. His parents had raised him to believe in the sanctity of vows, even if his own relationship had ended in heartbreak. Pretending to be married even for a day felt wrong. And what about Sofia? How would she understand her father suddenly marrying a stranger, even if only for appearances? The next morning, Sofia woke up early and padded into the kitchen with messy hair, dragging her teddy bear along. Daddy, you look tired. Miguel forced a smile. I'm fine, mija. Just thinking. About work? She asked, climbing onto a chair. He hesitated. Something like that. Sofia tilted her head, her innocence cutting through his turmoil. Don't worry, Daddy. You always make things okay. Those words pierced him. He wanted so badly to believe them, but reality weighed heavy. His phone buzzed with a reminder from the landlord. Rent due in 3 days or eviction notice will follow. Miguel sighed, rubbing his temples. Maybe Isabella's offer wasn't just temptation. It was an answer. Later that afternoon, Miguel walked to the diner for his shift. As he scrubbed greasy pans in the back kitchen, his coworker Jorge noticed his distracted look. Hey, hermano, you okay? You look like you're fighting ghosts in your head. Miguel let out a humorless chuckle. Something like that. Someone made me an offer, a crazy one. Jorge smirked. What kind of offer? You selling your soul or something? Miguel paused, then whispered, They offered me $50,000 if I marry them. Just for a day. The pan Jorge was scrubbing slipped and clanged in the sink. "Okay, are you serious? That sounds like a movie." "I know." "That's why I don't trust it," Miguel muttered. Jorge leaned closer. "Bro, do you know how much 50 grand is? That's life-changing money. If it's real, you'd be crazy to say no." "But it feels wrong," Miguel admitted. "Marriage isn't a game," Jorge shrugged. "Maybe not. But sometimes life throws you something unexpected. Maybe this is your shot." You've been carrying the world on your back for years. Think about Sophia. What could that money do for her? Those words sank in deeper than Miguel wanted to admit. That evening, Miguel picked Sophia up from the neighbor's apartment. As they walked home, she chattered about her day, how she colored a picture of a castle and pretended she was a princess. "Daddy, if I were a princess, I'd make sure you had a big house and never had to work so hard," she said innocently. Miguel's throat tightened. He lifted her into his arms, hugging her close. "You already are my princess, and I promise I'll find a way to give you that castle one day." But the promise felt hollow. Without a miracle, he couldn't make it true, unless he took Isabella's deal. That night, after putting Sophia to bed, Miguel stared at the business card again. His hands trembled as he picked up his phone. "Isabella Romero, private line." He typed a message. "I'll meet you tomorrow. We need to talk." Then he hit send. The next day, Miguel found himself sitting in a quiet cafe downtown. He wore his cleanest shirt, though it was still faded, and kept glancing at the door nervously. When Isabella finally walked in, heads turned. She carried an air of authority, her heels clicking sharply against the tiled floor. She spotted him immediately and approached. "Mr. Alvarez." Miguel stood awkwardly, shaking her hand. "Please call me Miguel. Then you must call me Isabella." She sat across from him, crossing her legs gracefully. "So you've thought about my offer." Miguel took a deep breath. "I have, and I need to understand why me. You could pay anyone to do this. Why a single dad from the wrong side of town?" Isabella stirred her coffee slowly before answering. "Because I need someone I can trust not to betray me. My father's business partners are circling like vultures, waiting for me to slip up. If I chose someone from my world, they'd sell the story in a heartbeat. You, on the other hand, have nothing to gain except the money I promised. You have a reputation for honesty, Miguel. That's what I need." Miguel frowned. "How do you know I won't betray you?" Her eyes softened. "Because I saw how you carry your daughter. I watched you for weeks before approaching you. You'd sacrifice anything for her. Men like that don't break trust easily." Her words disarmed him. It was unsettling, knowing she had observed his life without him realizing it, yet there was no malice in her tone. "And why marriage?" Miguel pressed. Isabella leaned back, her gaze hardening slightly. "My father's board insists that I appear stable before I take over a major contract. They think a young, unmarried woman can't be taken seriously in negotiations. They're old-fashioned and controlling. But if I appear married, even for one day, I secure the deal and prove my point." Miguel shook his head slowly. "So this is about appearances?" "Yes," Isabella admitted. "It's a transaction. You help me. I help you. Nothing more." Silence hung between them. Miguel's mind raced. It was risky, bizarre, maybe even dangerous. But Isabella's offer could pull him and Sophia out of the pit they were trapped in. Finally, he spoke, his voice low but steady. "And you promise 50,000? "Cash," Isabella confirmed. "Half up front, half after the ceremony." Miguel exhaled, rubbing his face with his hands. "This feels crazy." Isabella gave him a faint smile. "Sometimes crazy is what saves us." He stared at her, torn between doubt and desperation. Then he thought of Sophia's small body curled up under thin blankets, her whispered dream of living in a castle, her faith that he would always make things okay. Miguel swallowed hard. "I'll do it." Isabella's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of relief in her eyes. She extended her hand across the table. "Then we have a deal, Mr. Alvarez." Miguel shook her hand, feeling the weight of a choice that would alter the course of his life. As they parted ways, Isabella said softly, almost as if to herself, "You'll thank me one day." But Miguel wasn't sure if he'd thank her or regret her for the rest of his life. 2 days later, Miguel stood in front of a full-length mirror in a small boutique, tugging uncomfortably at the sleeves of a rented tuxedo. He had never worn something so formal in his life. His world was made of work boots, worn jeans, and grease-stained t-shirts. Now staring at himself in the sharp black suit, he hardly recognized the man looking back. Behind him, Sophia sat on a chair swinging her legs, her eyes wide with excitement. She wore a little white dress Isabella had insisted on buying for her. Her hair was neatly braided with a pink ribbon, and she looked every bit like the princess she dreamed of being. "Daddy," she said with a giggle, "you look like a prince." Miguel chuckled nervously. A very nervous prince, maybe. At that moment, Isabella entered the boutique, commanding the room without trying. She wore a simple yet elegant cream-colored dress, her dark hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. The stylist fussing over her barely seemed necessary. She already radiated confidence. When Sophia saw her, her jaw dropped. "Wow, are you a princess too?" Isabella crouched down to meet Sophia's gaze, a rare smile softening her usually composed features. "Something like that. And today I get to borrow your daddy for a little while." Miguel shifted awkwardly, his face heating. "Borrow, that's one way to put it." Sophia tilted her head curiously. "Why do you want to marry my daddy?" The question hung in the air, simple yet piercing. Isabella glanced at Miguel as if asking permission. Miguel knelt beside Sophia. "It's just pretend, mija. Like a play. We're helping Miss Isabella with something important." Sophia nodded slowly, accepting the explanation in the way only children could. "Okay, but if it's pretend, can I be the flower girl?" Both adults laughed, the tension breaking. Isabella touched Sophia's cheek gently. "Of course. You'll be the most important flower girl ever." The ceremony was arranged quietly, without fanfare. Isabella had pulled strings to secure a private courthouse wedding. No press, no outsiders. Only a judge, 2 witnesses provided by her staff, Miguel, Isabella, and little Sophia holding a basket of petals. Miguel's hands trembled as he signed the paperwork. It felt surreal, wrong even, to see his name next to Isabella's on a marriage certificate. He reminded himself it was just for one day. A transaction. Nothing more. When it came time for the vows, the judge read the words, but Miguel barely heard them. His mind was on Sophia, who beamed proudly as she tossed petals down the aisle. "Do you, Isabella Romero, take Miguel Alvarez to be your lawfully wedded husband?" the judge asked. "I do," Isabella replied smoothly, her voice unwavering. "And do you, Miguel Alvarez, take Isabella Romero to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Miguel hesitated for the briefest moment, then forced the words out. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by the state of Texas, I now pronounce you husband and wife." There was polite applause from the witnesses. Miguel stood stiffly, unsure what to do until Isabella leaned forward and brushed a quick, businesslike kiss against his cheek. It was done. They were married. Later, at Isabella's penthouse, Miguel found himself overwhelmed by the sheer luxury surrounding him. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city skyline. It was a world he had only ever seen in magazines. Sophia ran from room to room, her laughter echoing as she explored. "Daddy, look. They have a swimming pool inside the building, and the bathroom is bigger than our whole apartment." Miguel forced a smile, though his chest ached. He didn't want Sophia to get attached to this world they couldn't keep. Isabella noticed his unease. "She seems happy here. She's a child," Miguel said quietly. "She doesn't understand that this isn't real." Isabella's expression softened, though her tone remained composed. "Maybe she doesn't need to understand. Maybe she just needs to feel happy, even if only for a day." Miguel looked at her, surprised by the hint of vulnerability in her words. For the first time, he saw beyond the polished CEO's daughter, saw a woman carrying her own burdens hidden beneath perfection. That evening, they gathered around the grand dining table. Isabella's personal chef had prepared a feast: roasted chicken, vegetables, fresh bread, and a chocolate cake Sophia devoured with delight. Miguel felt out of place. Using utensils he barely knew how to hold properly. But Isabella carried the conversation effortlessly, asking Sophia about her favorite cartoons and listening intently to her stories. "Do you always work so much, Miss Isabella?" Sophia asked between bites of cake. Isabella smiled faintly. "Yes, work is very important to me. But don't you get lonely?" Sophia asked innocently. Isabella froze for a moment, caught off guard. "Sometimes," she admitted softly. Miguel's eyes flicked toward her, surprised by her honesty. For someone so composed, Isabella rarely let cracks show in her armor. Later, when Sophia was asleep in the guest room, Miguel found himself standing on the balcony, gazing at the glittering city below. Isabella joined him, holding 2 glasses of wine. She handed him one. "I don't really drink," Miguel said, hesitating. "Neither do I," Isabella admitted, setting hers down untouched. "It's just something people expect at moments like this." They stood in silence for a while, the city humming beneath them. Finally, Miguel spoke. "I still don't understand why you trust me with this." You barely know me. Isabella leaned against the railing, her eyes distant. Because I see something in you I don't see in anyone else. You're not after money or status. You just want to take care of your daughter. That makes you trustworthy. Miguel chuckled bitterly. If that were true, I wouldn't have agreed to this deal. You agreed because you had no choice, Isabella corrected gently. That doesn't make you less honorable. It makes you human. Their eyes met, and for a moment something unspoken passed between them. A recognition of shared loneliness, different, yet the same. Miguel quickly looked away. This ends tomorrow, right? After your meeting? Yes, Isabella replied quietly. Tomorrow everything goes back to normal. But as she said it, neither of them truly believed it. That night, Miguel lay awake in the luxurious guest bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought of the contrast between this life and the one waiting for him back in their apartment. He thought of Sophia's laughter, Isabella's unexpected vulnerability, and the strange feeling growing in his chest. He had told himself this was just a transaction, nothing more. But as much as he tried to deny it, something about this marriage, pretend or not, was beginning to feel real, and that was dangerous. The morning of Isabella's big meeting dawned bright and clear. Miguel had woken early, making breakfast for Sophia in the massive kitchen that still felt like someone else's world. He had managed scrambled eggs, toast, and orange juice, simple compared to the chef's creations. But Sophia ate happily, swinging her legs at the oversized bar stool. "Daddy, are we staying here forever?" she asked between bites. Miguel's chest tightened. "No, Princesa. This is just a visit." "But I like it here," she said innocently. "Miss Isabella is nice. She listens to me." Miguel forced a smile, hiding the storm brewing inside him. Sophia was already becoming attached, and he feared what would happen when they went back to their reality. At 10 sharp, Isabella emerged from her room in a tailored navy suit, her hair pulled back into a sleek bun. She looked every bit the powerful executive she was destined to be, yet when she saw Sophia run to her with a drawing clutched in her small hands, her hardened exterior cracked. "I made this for you," Sophia announced proudly, holding up the crayon picture of a castle with 3 figures. A tall woman, a man in a suit, and a little girl with a crown. Isabella studied it, something flickering in her eyes. "This is beautiful, Sophia, thank you." Sophia beamed. "That's you, that's Daddy, and that's me. We're a family." Miguel's stomach dropped. He started to explain, but Isabella touched his arm gently, stopping him. She crouched to Sophia's level and said, "Even if it's just pretend, I'll treasure this." Sophia hugged her tightly, leaving Isabella uncharacteristically frozen before she carefully wrapped her arms around the child. For a woman who claimed this was all business, Isabella seemed shaken by such a simple gesture. Hours later, Miguel found himself sitting stiffly in the waiting area outside the Romero Enterprises boardroom. Isabella had insisted he attend with her for appearance's sake, while Sophia colored quietly beside him. Through the glass walls, Miguel could see the board members, men in expensive suits with skeptical eyes. Isabella stood confidently at the head of the table, introducing her husband. Miguel nodded politely when called upon, though the weight of their gazes made his stomach churn. One of the older executives smirked. "So this is the man who finally convinced our Isabella to settle down. Tell us, Mr. Alvarez, what do you do?" Miguel froze. He hadn't expected to be questioned. I work in construction. And landscaping. Honest work." The board members exchanged amused looks. One whispered something to another, and laughter rippled around the table. Miguel's cheeks burned with humiliation, but Isabella's sharp voice cut through. "Miguel is one of the most hard-working men I've ever met. He doesn't need a corner office to prove his worth." The room fell silent. For a brief moment, Miguel saw fire in her eyes. Not the polished confidence of a CEO's daughter, but something protective, almost personal. The meeting continued with contracts and presentations, but Miguel's mind lingered on that moment. Isabella had defended him, not for appearances, but because she meant it. After hours of negotiation, the deal was sealed. The board members shook hands, smiling as they congratulated Isabella. She had proven herself capable, and Miguel's presence, however unusual, had played a part in silencing their doubts. As they left the building, Isabella exhaled deeply, tension leaving her shoulders. "It's done. The deal went through. Miguel smiled faintly. So this is where we say goodbye? Isabella glanced at him, hesitating. That was the plan. Sophia tugged on Isabella's hand. Can we celebrate? Like with ice cream? Isabella blinked, surprised. Ice cream? Miguel chuckled. She's got a point. A deal that big deserves at least a scoop. For the first time, Isabella laughed, a real unguarded laugh that caught Miguel off guard. All right, ice cream it is. They ended up at a small local shop far from the glitter of downtown. Isabella looked out of place among the plastic chairs and bright posters, but she didn't complain. She even let Sophia smear chocolate on her fingers, laughing as the little girl offered her a bite. Miguel watched, conflicted. This was supposed to be a transaction, but seeing Isabella with Sophia felt natural. Too natural. When Sophia ran to the restroom, Miguel finally spoke. You were incredible today. In that meeting, you defended me. Why? Isabella met his gaze, her eyes softer than he had ever seen them. Because you didn't deserve their ridicule. You work harder than any of them ever will, and maybe because I didn't like how it felt when they laughed at you. Miguel swallowed hard. You're dangerous, Isabella. Her brow furrowed. Dangerous? Yes, he said quietly. Because this was supposed to be fake. But moments like this, they make it feel real. She looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, maybe real isn't such a bad thing. Before Miguel could respond, Sophia returned, happily clutching napkins. The moment broke, but the unspoken words hung between them. That night back at the penthouse, Miguel tucked Sophia into bed. She whispered sleepily, Daddy, I like Miss Isabella. She makes you smile. Miguel brushed her hair back. Go to sleep, Princesa. Once she drifted off, he stepped into the living room where Isabella sat by the window with a glass of water. She looked exhausted, her shoulders slumped in a way he had never seen. You did it, Miguel said gently. You proved yourself today. Yes, Isabella replied, staring at the city lights. But somehow it doesn't feel like enough. Miguel frowned. What do you mean? She hesitated before answering. All my life people have measured me by my last name, my wealth, my father's empire. Today, for the first time, I wasn't alone in that room. You stood by me and it felt different. Miguel sat across from her, conflicted. This was supposed to be one day. Just business. Isabella's eyes met his. And yet here we are, both wishing it wasn't over. The silence between them was charged. Heavy with everything neither dared to say. Then Isabella stood abruptly, her mask of composure slipping back into place. You'll have your money tomorrow. Our agreement will be complete. Miguel nodded, though his chest ached. Right. Tomorrow. But as he returned to the guest room, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about a connection neither of them had expected, and neither knew how to handle. The wedding day dawned with a golden sunrise, casting warm light over the small but beautifully decorated garden behind the Alvarez apartment complex. Miguel had insisted on keeping things simple. He didn't want extravagance, only sincerity. Yet somehow, thanks to Elena's connections and quiet determination, what was meant to be a modest gathering looked like something out of a dream. White chairs lined the narrow pathway, decorated with ribbons and small bouquets of sunflowers, Sophia's favorite. A borrowed archway stood at the front, draped in white fabric that fluttered in the breeze. Children from the neighborhood had pitched in to help, tying balloons and carrying trays of food. For the first time in years, Miguel felt a sense of community lifting him up instead of watching him struggle alone. Miguel stood near the archway, adjusting his tie nervously. He still couldn't believe what had happened. Just weeks ago, he had been staring down eviction notices and working double shifts, wondering how much longer he could keep Sophia safe and fed. Now, he was about to marry Elena Martinez, the daughter of a man who owned half the city. But more than her status, it was Elena's kindness that had stunned him. She had seen him not as the struggling janitor everyone else overlooked, but as a man, a father, and someone who deserved a chance. When she had first told him, I'll give you $50,000 if you marry me one day, Miguel had thought it was some kind of cruel joke or a desperate attempt to escape her father's control. But Elena hadn't been joking. She had wanted to help, and in helping she had fallen in love with him, and unexpectedly with Sophia too. Dad? A small voice pulled him from his thoughts. Sophia tugged at his sleeve, wearing a tiny lavender dress that Elena had picked out for her. Are you nervous? Miguel crouched down, smoothing her hair. Maybe just a little. You don't have to be. She loves you. And I think Mom would like her too. Her words pierced him with both pain and healing. Miguel hugged Sofia tightly. You're right, mija. Your mom would want me to be happy, and she'd be so proud of you. The guests began to arrive. A mix of Elena's friends and Miguel's neighbors filled the seats, whispering in surprise at how their worlds had collided. Some still looked at Miguel with disbelief, a janitor marrying a CEO's daughter, but the doubts melted when they saw the way Elena walked toward him. Elena wore a simple ivory dress that flowed with elegance yet carried no hint of arrogance. She held Sofia's hand as they walked together down the makeshift aisle. The sight made Miguel's chest tighten. This wasn't just a wedding. It was the start of a family. When Elena reached him, her smile was steady, her eyes shimmering with emotion. The officiant began the vows, but Miguel hardly heard the words. All he could focus on was her hand in his, warm and sure, grounding him in a way he hadn't felt since his late wife was alive. When it was his turn, Miguel spoke from the heart. Elena, I never imagined my life would bring me here. For so long I thought love wasn't meant for me anymore. I thought my story ended the day I lost Sofia's mother. But then you walked into our lives. You didn't see me as broken or poor. You saw me as a father, as a man trying his best. And you gave me hope again. I don't care about your money or your last name. I care about the way you make Sofia smile, the way you make me feel like I matter. I promise to stand by you, to protect you, and to love you with everything I have, because what I have is enough. Tears blurred Elena's eyes. She squeezed his hand and spoke her vows. Miguel, people always see me as the CEO's daughter, but with you I'm just me. You never asked for anything from me, yet you've given me everything. You've shown me what strength looks like, not in power or money, but in love. You are the bravest man I know, and I promise to walk beside you for the rest of my life. And Sofia... She glanced at the little girl, smiling brightly. I promise to love you as my own. With all my heart. The officiant declared them husband and wife, and when Miguel kissed Elena, the crowd erupted in cheers. Sofia clapped wildly, shouting, Yay! We're a real family now. After the ceremony, laughter and music filled the garden. Plates of food passed around. Children danced, and for once Miguel wasn't worrying about bills or shifts. He was surrounded by love, security, and the promise of a better future. Elena handed Miguel an envelope, and he looked at her quizzically. What's this? She smirked. A promise I intend to keep. Inside was a check for $50,000 made out in his name. Miguel stared at it, stunned. Elena, I can't take this. Yes, you can, she insisted gently. This isn't charity. This is partnership. You've carried the burden alone for too long. Let me share it now. We're a family. His throat tightened. For years he had been too proud to accept help, always fighting his battles in silence. But now he realized accepting Elena's gift wasn't weakness, it was love. Sofia skipped over, holding both their hands. Does this mean we don't have to worry about losing our home anymore? Miguel pulled her close, tears in his eyes. That's right, mija. We're safe now. We're home. Elena kissed Sofia's forehead. And we're going to build something beautiful together. No more struggling alone. Miguel looked at them, his daughter, his wife, and felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't known in years. It wasn't the $50,000 or the wedding or even the relief from hardship. It was the fact that love had found him again, when he had almost given up hope. For the first time in a long time, Miguel Alvarez believed in miracles. Ending note for audience. Sometimes, life gives us battles that feel impossible to win, but love, true love, can break through the hardest struggles. Miguel thought his story was one of endless sacrifice, but Elena showed him that even the most broken hearts can find healing. And in the end, it wasn't the money that changed his life, but the choice to let love in.